Hi.
Hi, welcome to Let's Talk About Dead.
We're back.
I'm Tammy Beilstein.
And I'm Sarah Lunsford.
We thought we would go over this little handout here. This is something that Glenn gave us, the man who runs this mortuary here.
And it's super helpful.
Super
helpful.
Yeah, before we forget, Glenn was telling us that they're going to be putting together a new website, and they're going to have this sort of information on their site. So no matter where you live, you can go on there, download something like this so you'll know ahead of time what kind of things are needed for a death certificate, all of that. That's what we want to talk about.
Exactly.
So he has on here even the types of options to be considered. Traditional service of burial, traditional service of cremation, a graveside service, cremation with or without a memorial service. And all the options for visitation too. This is super handy.
It is.
Yeah. On the inside of this, he has a list of the things that are needed for the death certificate. And a lot of these things are, no-brainer. The person's name, their birth date, where they were born, that sort of thing. But there are other things on here that I think people might not realize are wanted.
Like the Social Security number.
Right? Yeah. Social Security number. The highest grade level completed.
Yeah, as far as high school, university, master's degree.
Why do you think they need
PhD.
that? I wonder why they need that.
I don't know. That's a question that maybe we should be asking someone.
Yeah.
Or figuring it out our own.
We should call Glenn in here. Things like that. The person's occupation, the type of business that they were in. But then also things like their mother's name, her maiden name, her middle name,
her maiden name, the father's name, his middle name.
Yeah.
And sometimes what happens is you only know your dad is Jack, and you didn't realize it was a nickname he got when he was a kid, and his name is actually, I don't know, Joseph or Fred.
Or John. There's people in Mark's, my husband's family, who went from Jack to John, or John to Jack. I don't know, it's confusing to me.
And then everybody's like, who is that?
Yeah, but these are things that you need to know. And the name, address, and phone number of the physician, of their physician.
Yeah.
Very interesting. How many years they've been in the county?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. I highly recommend getting this list. Because
as you can tell, we're a little flummoxed by this.
There's stuff I even forgot that was on here. This is interesting.
And you need to know the person's address too, because not all of us memorize other people's addresses but our own, quite frankly. So you may want to bring your address book when you're coming to fill this type of thing out. And
any military records and things like that also.
Because the military records make a difference, because when someone was in the military and they're honorably discharged, not dishonorably, honorably discharged, then they are eligible for veterans benefits, and they can be buried in a veterans cemetery, and there's a whole other aspect of burial and cremation that veterans are entitled to, and unless you have their discharge papers or know when they served, what branch they served in, you can't access them.
Right.
You have to have the paper trail.
Do you know there are so many people, like my grandpa, when he died, I hardly knew anything about his service in the military. He was in World War II. He never talked about it. Never talked about his time in the war. I wish he had. I would have loved to hear those stories, but I do not know. If I were to fill this out for him and need to have these answers, I don't know, which is super sad, very sad. But on this other side of the page here, there are questions like, is there a durable power of attorney for healthcare decisions? If yes, include a copy of it here. Things like attorney's name, executive of the estate, insurance information.
Exactly.
Yeah, all these things that and in the moment, if something were to happen.
You kind of know where they are, or you think you do, but when you're in that grief-stricken shock moment, you really aren't thinking correctly, so you may not find them. So it's a really good idea to put them all in one place. a copy of the durable power of attorney, a copy of the will, copy of the will, or trust documents, so that you know exactly where to go to get them.
Right. For sure. In a bit, we're going to talk to you guys about this new book that we found that is helpful for all of that.
Out. Yeah.
But on the back here, there's tips for writing the obituary, the kinds of information that you would want to put in the obituary. The list of, for survivors, when I was younger, one of my jobs at the mortuary was to put flowers in order, starting at the head and foot of the casket, like this, in order of family members, survivors. And so this on here lists that also, who you, it's here because it's who you go to first. Glenn would first talk to the spouse.
Yeah.
And then the adult
spouse,
yeah,
the children, and then the grandchildren,
right?
And then, you go down.
Yeah, and we used to do that with flower arrangements. It was a big deal to my grandpa to set them up in the correct order. Yeah, so that the closest family were closest to their flowers were closest to the casket, and so on. It was a big deal to him. Yeah, but it's a really neat idea, and I don't know if many places do that anymore. I tell you, he was all over me for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Better move that.
I know. That's not the right spot.
Yeah, exactly.
That goes over there.
Move it over.
Right.
But it's actually, I mean, we touched on this a little bit in our last video about the importance of going to the memorial funeral home before you need to, so that you can pick up things like this that will help you a lot, but also so you can get a feel for where you're going to be seeing your loved one for the last time, if you choose to see them. Now, you may not choose to see them, you know, and there's different types of viewings as well. There's the viewing, in a traditional funeral setting where they're in the casket, or if you don't want to do a casket and you don't want a traditional funeral, but you still want a viewing, they do viewings where they just put them on basically a medical table, right? And but they make it nice. It's not like, you don't feel like your loved one's on a medical table, but you do get to see them for the last time, if that's what you want to do. And some people really just do not want to see their loved ones after they pass away. And
some people want both.
They do. They do. They want the private and then the public too.
When my brother-in-law died, his parents, my husband's parents, wanted to see him before everybody else. They wanted to see him right away before anything was even done to his body, before his embalming or anything. And the mortuary allowed them and us to all go back and see him. And he was on the table. There was a sheet down, and he had a quilt on him. I know that they did this here also. Yeah. A quilt over him. And it was done as nicely as it could be done.
Yes.
It's not the same as having someone dressed and all prepared and in their casket. But I think I would want to be that way also. I'd want to see the person as much as I could. Yeah. And so some people choose to do both. Some people, like Sarah was saying, don't want
to see at all.
Yeah, they just want to remember their person as they were living. But
I had a funny experience. My best friend died of breast cancer. That's not the funny experience. The funny experience, hello. But her husband just wanted a private viewing with just a few family and friends, very close friends, and she was just on the medical gurney, but she had the quilt over her, and she loved pink, so she had a little pink beanie on her head. It was just so cute. And what I found was interesting was I went and you say goodbye, and and you don't realize how cold they are until you touch them, because they are cold, and don't let it shock you that they just, their bodies are not living anymore, so they're cold. Right. But what I found was that every time I passed by the memorial chapel, I wanted to go in and see her. Oh, yeah. And so you have different reactions. I didn't have that reaction with my dad. Of course, I was not passing by the memorial home all the time, but with her, I was. So as before her cremation, every time I passed by for a few days, I would want to go in and go, can I just see her one more time?
Yeah.
You know, and some memorial chapels are okay with that, I guess.
Yeah.
But it is a funny reaction, and that, I mean, it's worth saying you're going to have odd reactions that surprise even you when someone you love dies.
Yeah.
You know, and you see them and you know it's not them, and you know they're not there anymore, but you still want to go back and see them again.
Yeah, physical connection with them. What you're saying reminds me of one of the things that was, people would ask me what was the hardest part about working at the mortuary. For me, it was telling people they had to go home. Because we weren't a 24-hour business, you know. We had regular business hours. We'd stay open later if we had a viewing or a rosary service or something like that in the evening. But you know, people just can't come 24 hours a day. No. And if people were there to visit their loved one and had been there for a while and it's time to close, I did not like being the person who had to tell them it was time to go home and they could come back in the morning. That broke my heart. Yeah. I did not like doing that at all. Which is partly why I am also a fan of home funerals, but because I have my own issues with that. But yeah, I think mortuaries are, you know, they're there to take care of the family to give you all what you need at the hardest time of your life, and so I think most of them would be fine with that. I totally understand it. Yeah, you're a good friend.
But sometimes, you know, you surprise yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like we say, do what you need to do.
Do what you need to do. It's totally individual. The whole process is individual too. You know, there's some similarities, you know, obviously with different people, but we're all individuals and we all react very differently. Yeah. So, but you help yourself out a lot when you have a lot of the paperwork taken care of.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to think about it.
Right. So, you know, we didn't get the exact name of their website where our friends can get this. But if you look up Calaveras Mortuaries Inc., hopefully that'll direct you to all of this great information here.
Definitely.
Yeah. So everyone should get this.
Yeah. And so we'll see you again next time.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.